Mother's Day is coming up, and my mom requested a wormy hat in variegated blue and green with a bunch of wormies. And by wormy hat, she means that hat that I made, that Morgan Donner made as a medieval thing, and I recreated in yarn. When she came to visit while I was super sick, she went home with that one, and she really likes it. So I'm gonna make her version, but I'm on a no-buy right now, and while I have a bunch of blues and greens, I don't have any variegated blue-green. And I'm not gonna go buy it because I'm on a no-buy, so I'm going to DIY a twister stack, I think is what they're called. I found one blog post about them, and they apparently show up on eBay in a few different places. They're super expensive, but I'm gonna make one out of a box. The idea is that you have one cone of yarn and then another source of yarn, and they're stacked on top of each other so that when the yarn feeds, the inside yarn comes up through the inside of the cone, and then as the yarn unravels and like twists around the cone, the two strands get twisted together automatically. And there are tools out there to pre-twist your yarns together, but this is like an easier version of that. So the plan is to take my box and cut a hole like here-ish, put one yarn inside, and then feed it through the hole, through the top of a cone, and then knit with that. So this should be doable. The question is, can I do it without hurting myself? But first, I'm gonna tape the box up so it's like more stable. Ta-da! Box. The little pocket knife has an awl, so we're just gonna make a hole, like right here-ish. And then let's make that hole bigger with various other parts of the pocket knife. Pen. I don't really want jagged edges because I don't want the yarn to get caught on the jagged edges and have problems. So piece of tape on the top, piece of tape on the bottom, and then I'm just like folding the tape bits in so to like seal it off. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let me give you a close-up. Here's the top. Look at that. So exciting. Here is the bottom. All right, let's see if we can knit with this. Here is my stacker box. This one goes here, and this one goes here. So I'm just gonna take the yarn, the bottom yarn, feed it through the top, and then you just feed it through the cone. So I'm just gonna try to drop it down in there. Get at this. There we go. And then these two yarns get fed together up into the tension mast, and they're already starting to wrap around each other. With my yarns fed into my tension mast, and you can see they're already twisting around each other. It's not as twisty as it would be with other methods, but this should be enough to like have a more consistent marled effect in the final fabric. All right, it's time to swatch. This is a little too thick for this machine. I'm going to switch to my mid gauge. It's doing something. We'll see how it looks on the mid gauge. That went much better. And look at that. That's a much more consistent marl. Hold on, let me find the other example. I found the other example. So this is the kind of marling you get when it's just 2 yarns held together. Sometimes one is in front, sometimes the other. You have no control over it. You also have no control over this, but it gets a much more consistent look and feel. And it's not like individual lines, it's like between the lines. So it's a lot more homogeneous. So I'm happy with this. I'm gonna wash it and block it and then do my hat math. I'm not gonna bother to swatch any of my other yarns because these are only for the wormies on top of the hat, and it doesn't really matter how big or small the gauge is for that. I'm just going to eyeball the length, and they're all going to be three stitch I-cord. So let me wash this and then we'll be back. Hello. All right, my swatch has come out of the wash and I got a gauge and I did my pattern for the hat, which this is what my patterns look like when I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's just scribbles. I know what this means. You may not know what this means, but I know what this means. So let's make a hat. It's gonna have 37 wormies. So I need 37 combinations of 2 things of my yarn. I'm gonna really do like the wormies in chunks. Let me find some waste yarn before I get started, actually. Not you. Red will do. Red waste yarn, because you want it to contrast the main yarn. Okay, I need 111 stitches, which means I'm going to need more of these. All right, we got some waste yarn, and then I need to knit 12 rows, do my hem, and then another 12 rows. This is what we're doing. So exciting. And now we make the picot hem by transferring each stitch to the one next to it. And I show you how to do this in my beginner video. The first one, that's like absolutely everything you need to know to get started with the LK150. You know, I'll just link it. You need more weight. The convenience of having multiple knitting machines means having lots of weights and accessories that you can just add to things. So here is the base hat, and I threaded a line through all the live stitches and then also took them off on waste yarn so I could make the wormies. And this is pretty good. I ran out of my bluish yarn like 3 rows before the end, so I just knit 1 more row with just one strand instead of two, and that'll help a bit with the bulkiness in the crown. And now I need to start doing the wormies, which are 3 stitches at a time. But first, let me set up a new stack. This has a cavity in the center now, so I might be able to feed something up through and call this my top yarn instead of my bottom yarn. And then keep some consistency with the hat base. So I've got a couple little balls of waste yarn. Let's see how this goes. Not waste yarn, leftover yarn. Where is your end? Okay, there you go. And we come up through the hole. We are threaded. Now I'm going to pick up 3 stitches at a time for the wormies. If I can find 3 stitches. There we go, come on. Doesn't really matter where they go on the bed. Then a weight goes in here. And I don't know how many rows I'm going to need, so I'm just going to reset the row counter and then keep an eye on it. And carriage settings for this, we need to knit in one direction and slip in the other. So I have one lever up, the back lever up on this left side, and then we turn the tension down to about half of what it was when we were knitting plain. Knitting normally, and let me move my camera out of the way. Trying to decide if I like the length of that. I'll go a little longer. Okay, we've got about 50 passes of the carriage, which is about 25 rows, and I'm going to call that long enough for a wormy. It'll shorten up a bit once it's blocked, but that should be good. So, cut your yarn. Here. Put a button. And then onto the tapestry needle, and then we thread it through the loops. And off it comes. And then I'm just going to finish these as I go so I don't have to deal with them later. The yarn gets threaded down through the middle of the wormy. And then I got the tail end. And that's it. We have a wormy. This is an I-cord wormy. And I need to remember that I go to row counter 50. Okay. And I don't want to have to redo my stack for every wormy, so I'm going to reuse the same yarn combination in a few different places. Here is the final hat, washed and blocked. It's a little big, but my mom likes her hats a little big. And you can see the noodles, and like, she can always fold up the brim. And then it's more hat shaped. So this is pretty good. This is like a nice, cheap alternative to the twister stack that you could buy from Hague. Hague sells it. I'll link to where you can find it, but honestly, a box is a lot easier. I'm gonna send this hat off to my mom for Mother's Day and probably post this video afterwards. I don't know what my schedule is gonna look like, but no spoilers. I'm sure you'll see the stack again, especially because I'm in a no-buy right now and I'm not supposed to be buying yarn. And I have a ton of like really lightweight yarns that I never really use because they're like too thin for my standard gauge machine. But the stack will help like blend them together and make more interesting things. So I'd like to say thank you to channel members who make videos like this possible. If you would like to become a channel member and support this channel, all channel members get early access to videos, and channel members at the mid-tier and above get access to members-only videos where I give like health updates and talk a bit about upcoming projects and like what's going on in my life and stuff. So that's your thing. Check it out and hit the join button down below. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting. We need something lighter in color. Come on. And we have a tension mask in the way. Can we get closer? And we have this here. I'm gonna get everything in print. This is sticky. Over this way. I'm sure there's something in there.